back when I got sober, there was nothing online, sober influencers, sober websites. None of this existed. What existed was Charlie Sheen went to promises. I, of course, with all my wonderful values, said, well, I want to go where Charlie Sheen went because obviously there's pools, there's masseuses, there's probably someone famous who I could date. So I show up the following week, which was May 2nd of 2000. I'm looking around, I'm like, where the movie star? Like, where's the pool? Like, why is there just a broken basketball net? Where's the tennis courts? And someone goes, oh, you realize there are two promises, right? There's the fancy one in Malibu, and there's this one.
And here we are with Anna David. I'm really excited to talk to you.
I'm super excited to talk to you always.
Can I remind you of, I feel like this came up when we first met,
Hmm.
and it's all going to come back around when we talk about your story. But many years ago, you were an editor. You know where I'm going with
I
this.
know where you're going. Yes. Yes. I don't even know if you know the full story, but you tell from your POV.
Well, you eventually told me the full
Oh,
story, but
okay.
what happened is I wrote an article for a website called The Fix.
Hmm.
I didn't know you or the person who owned the website at the time. I was just tasked with writing like my story. I wrote an article. It got rewritten. It got
Hmm.
very rewritten in a way that was not even I've never had something so changed out of my voice. Wasn't run by me. It was
Hmm.
just changed. It was given a very salacious title
Hmm.
that made me sound like a mom that should get arrested.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then it was published that way, and I was really upset.
With also a photo of you and your adorable children, like that didn't go, that I wouldn't, as a mother, I would not want that. Remember, it was just, they were so cute and it was like against the headline. So here, totally on your side, keep going.
Yeah, so it was something like wasted,
Mhm.
like what something about being like a wasted mom or something. And I was like, I had just recently, I believe, talked about the fact that I'd driven drunk with my kids. And it was very new and kind of raw to be saying that, not out loud, but in print. And I just felt like I was very exploited. And I asked for it to be changed, and then I found myself in a back and forth with you, and I believe you were apologizing, and you were like, "Oh my God, I totally get it. It's not, I didn't do it."
So yeah, the backstory was the person who owned the website was not sober, and in fact was intoxicated all the time, and had access to the website. And every night we'd go in and drunkenly rewrite these stories about sobriety. And me, and the other editors and I, but I was the top editor, would just try to wake up earlier to change it back before anybody saw it. However, this drunk person was also a very angry, controlling person. And if he discovered that we did that, the tirade never ended. And so that was one where he was, I think I changed it. And then you're mad, as you should be. And he's enraged at me for changing it. And it was like, it's just when I think back on those days when I worked for people like that, I can't quite believe it. But yes, it was awful. It was awful. And it was, you were not the only person that I had to do that with.
You know, working for other people sucks.
It sure does. I was just talking to somebody about this. I only have had one non-abusive boss, and it was my first boss. So I was 21 to 24. So I had no idea that like that was not normal to have someone who really nurtures you and cares about you. I mean, I had phones thrown at me. I had all the Me Too stuff. I'm like, that's nothing compared to what I experienced. Toughen up, kids. Seriously.
So listen, you are one of the most accomplished sober people. You've been sober a long time now. How many years exactly?
Well, guess what? In From the day of recording, I can't do math. In like 13 days, it'll be 25 years.
That's amazing.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And I'm 16 years sober. So, and you're way younger than I am. So
Not true.
you got sober young.
Mm, I
How
mean,
old?
no, I was 30.
Okay.
So I'm not younger
Okay.
than you. I believe I'm older than
No,
you.
you're definitely you're still younger than me.
We're very much contemporaries, let's just say.
Well, you look amazing.
So do you.
Thank
Let's hear
you.
it for the not aging club, right? Um, so yeah, I got sober at 30, which feels like a good age to do it. And I'm 55. And so yeah, 25 years. And back when I got sober, when I was poking around in the late 90s, there was nothing online. You couldn't find, I mean, sober influencers, sober websites. None of this existed. What existed was Charlie Sheen went to promises. That's like all you could find. And then now and again, you could find like a meeting address. And so, I just killed a mosquito. And so, no, I didn't. And so, yeah, sorry, I'm very distracted by this mosquito that's I'm not killing. I, of course, with all my wonderful values, said, well, I want to go where Charlie Sheen went because obviously there's pools, there's masseuses, there's probably someone famous who I could date. And so I
Horseback riding.
horseback. I was like, whatever on the horseback riding. Weirdly, I went horseback riding last week, by the way. Yeah, the equine therapy, and probably acupuncture, but mostly I was interested in the celebrity boyfriend, that you could come out of rehab with one. And so I Google promises and I find promises and I call promises. And I actually had a job at the time, which was totally insane. I was running a website because this was early 2000s. So it was pre NASDAQ crash when everybody was just like throwing so much money at websites that you could hire a completely drug addicted girl to run your website and pay her, and nobody would even notice that it was all chaos. And so I call and I say, I'd like to do outpatient rehab here. And they're like, we don't do that. And I don't know what I said to them. I think I said something like, look, I don't think I'll stay sober if I don't have my job because it's the only thing that gives me any esteem. So if you let me show up every day after work, I promise I will stick with this. And I don't know. They said yes. And they were like, it's only, it was like $1,000 a month. And I'm like, ooh, this promises is a really good deal. So I show up the following week, which was May 2nd of 2000. I'm looking around, I'm like, where the movie star? Like, where's the pool? Like, why is there just a broken basketball net? Where's the tennis courts? And someone goes, oh, you realize there are two promises, right? There's the fancy one in Malibu, and there's this one. And then later, that one got much nicer, and I actually think it's now gone, but it was not nice in 2000.
So, did you change your mind right away, or were you like,
Oh no, I was like, I'd surrendered. So I was just like, okay, show me where to go. Show me what to do. And I went and sat in the group therapy room and it was really dingy and gross and everybody seemed way too happy and there were people joking about their suicide attempts and I went up and explained to them that that was not at all funny and that they should stop joking about very unfunny things and they just looked at me and they were like, "Oh, okay." And then what the way I remember it, it was a very long time ago, but the way I remember it now, that first group, I was like, fuck this. And by the second one, I was just like, oh my God, this is medicine for my soul. I kind of would hear people talking about these solutions to problems I didn't know I had. I thought I just was really fun. And then I'm hearing, oh, I'm not comfortable in my own skin and I live with 100 forms of fear and all of these things. And I just like saved my life in the simplest.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's really revelatory to find out that all these thoughts you have and all this shame you have is shared by tons of other people, right? From all walks of life. There's something I've written about this many, many times, but that feeling of me too uh, is like its own drug. I don't know if I could have gotten sober another way. I know a lot of people do. A lot of people get sober a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Much respect. But, you know, And there were a lot of reasons I didn't want to go to a 12-step meeting. I just thought it was really cheesy. I didn't want anything to do with any of the slogans. I'm not religious, still am not religious,
Yeah.
not even really that spiritual, to be totally honest. I don't know. I'm agnostic.
Mm.
So there were a lot of things I felt working against that kind of recovery for me. My thing was I just didn't have a better idea. I couldn't afford to go to rehab. I had 3 young kids. So I was like, well, this is what's available to me. And I know for sure I've made a million promises that I'm not going to drink anymore. And I always break it. So I got to try something. But it was definitely, as they refer to it, last house on the block,
Oh, for
last stop, you know, had to be a little desperate. And from day one of me actually being there for me, I was like, whoa, I can't believe. Yeah. I mean, yeah, sometimes because early on, right, you're still sad and you still feel a lot of shame. So you are going to be a little bit annoyed at people laughing.
yeah, being
It's
happy.
not funny, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is true that the laughter is just basically saying I relate.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, that shared experience. I couldn't have done it any other way. I mean, I will say the other ways, which I'm speaking about mostly with ignorance because I didn't do them, as long as there's a community. Because that's, alcoholism and addiction is such a disease of isolation. So to just be among your fellows, whether they're in a 12-step room or a sober yoga retreat or whatever it is, um, for me, I find that I don't think my brain works the same way that other people's. My boyfriend is a normie. I see we have different ways of responding to things. My responses are massive. My feelings are I don't think alcoholics feelings are any more extreme than a normal person's feelings, but I think we prioritize them. I think, oh my God, and it was the feelings that caused the addiction for me. It was, I can't handle this feeling. It might kill me. I think my feelings will kill me. And so I'll do anything to escape it, even if I could die. It's okay. It's better than having this feeling. And all I have now is a great awareness that my feelings won't kill me, that they'll pass, that the pause. And I will say sobriety for me, no, recovery for me got so much easier around year 17. I know that's a long time, but like it was a lot of chaos. And then 17 to 25 has been very smooth in here and externally.
Can you tell me a little bit about like the before, at least what led up to needing to get sober? Because you
Yeah,
were a party girl,
I was a
which is the
party
name of
girl.
your first book.
The name of my first book. The book paints it as far more glamorous than it actually was. Basically, I graduated from college. I loved drinking in college. I loved doing drugs, and then I ended up a few years out of college living in LA, and I moved here in 1996, and I went to rehab in 2000. So those 3 or 4 years, it was just a lot of like really dark, depressing, doing drugs by myself, cats for company, lots of cigarettes, drinking vodka to try to come down, wanting to die. And I too thought I'm not going to go to AA. God, those people, they're creepy. Even though I knew sober people in AA who I loved, but I was just so terrified. And then at a certain point, it was just I kept saying that I was going to stop and I would stop, and then I would stop drugs, but I would keep drinking, and then I stopped drinking for 12 days and never stopped talking about it. Like 12 days of like, hi, like a buy a pack of cigarettes. How are you? I'm good. Day 3 without drinking, and the guy's like, okay. And then at a certain point, I don't know what was different about that day, the day that I woke up, and I called my family and I told them I was an alcoholic and could I get their help paying for rehab. And the following Monday, I was in rehab, my outpatient rehab.
Did your family feel like you had a problem?
Well, my family is an unusual I would say they don't really everybody's very self-concerned. So, yeah, I guess, but it wasn't a focus. But
Right.
they had always told me I was crazy, which is why the step about being restored to sanity didn't I hear people say, "Oh, I was so offended." And I was like, "No, I've been told I was crazy since birth. I want to be restored to sanity." And I was very isolated, and any people around me were also very addicty, so I didn't have that intervention type of experience or people noticing, really.
I mean, I didn't either. My husband didn't think I had a problem. He, I think my husband thought I was a problem drinker a little bit, but he didn't think I had alcoholism. He just thought, like, you just have to try harder. Like, just when you're at a party and people keep refilling your glass, you just got to be aware. Like, I can help you with that. Like, I could let you know. And, you can imagine how well that worked out. Like, I'd be like, I'm fine. Don't tell me what to do. And it would always lead to the same place. But no, I wasn't. Maybe because by the time I got sober, I was married and had kids. You're not gonna be like out partying as much.
Some are. I mean, your story is so fascinating to me because there's really no one else like that. You become very well known for, so sippy cups are for Chardonnay. Was that the first book?
Sippy cups are not for Chardonnay. Yeah,
Not,
they're for put the milk in the sippy cup and you deserve a nice wine glass for your Chardonnay.
but that
Treat
was
yourself, mama.
really ballsy and like kind of crazy. I mean, there's no one else that's done that, right? That's come out as like pro drinking or whatever you want to call it, and then said, actually, you know what? Stop. I mean, no one else has had that, right?
Right. It was not on purpose, although some
No.
people did accuse me of just trying to get publicity for my book. And I was like, this is horrible publicity.
I mean, I remember hearing about that and I just think it's really brave. I mean, it's funny though, because people will say it's really brave to go and talk about addiction or alcoholism. And then I've heard Lena Dunham say it's not brave if it doesn't scare you. So I always find very like, I'm like, it's not brave, like whatever. So did that feel brave to you at the time?
It Well, here's what happened in a nutshell. I got outed. I wouldn't have done it, I don't think. I wouldn't have been public about it. I was not looking for publicity, but I wrote on my blog, which only had like 500 readers at the time. It was just a little blog. Um, and then the New York Times parenting writer named Lisa Belkin picked up the story. Somebody told her, and then she reprinted my blog as her column. And it was kind of judgy, I don't mind saying. And all of a sudden, I was just minding my own business. I was 10 days sober. And all of a sudden, I started getting inundated with calls for a quote. Like I was famous, which I
Wow.
really wasn't. I was just
Wow.
like a writer who'd had this book. And all of a sudden, shit hit the fan and I was getting Dr. Phil was on the phone and this person was calling me and I was horrified.
Mm,
My publishing company was like, I feel like you have to do something. And the New York Times wants to write a story and you would be writing it with them. Like they would interview you. And this woman named Jan Hoffman wrote a story. Now at this point, I'm like 4 months sober. So I agree to do an interview. She talks to me, she talks to my husband, she talked to my brother, like, got the whole story. And she wrote a really nice, fair article, but it was on the front page of the style section of the Sunday Times, New York
right.
Times.
Right.
And and she ended it with a joke by me because I was like, yeah, so I don't drink anymore. Now, Vicodin, on the other hand, I was totally making a joke, but
Oh, wow.
people kind of lost their minds. People commented like she shouldn't have children. Somebody should take her kids away. It was pretty awful. So I think that's hence being sensitive about it years later about being seen the
Wow.
wrong way. But that
Wow.
by then the cat was out of the bag. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna like if people ask me for my story, I'm going to try to help people now.
I didn't know that. That is so fascinating because it's like it's it's an a nightmare for a newly sober person to have to make sense of this. I was just thinking about that because did you read the Elizabeth Gilbert book?
I didn't.
It's great. But I loved it. And I didn't even think I was an Elizabeth Gilbert fan. But people are like, yeah, shouldn't write a book about sobriety till you're, at least 5 years sober because she's just such a zealot for it, which is like whatever. But to be thrust into that position at the same time, it's what every writer dreams of. Oh my God, the New York Times wants to write about me. So what a, you know, conflicting, bizarre, stressful situation. That's all I'm saying.
And looking back, it is kind of crazy because I'm 16 years sober now. At 9 months sober, I did an interview for 2020. Yeah,
Wow.
with Elizabeth Vargas.
Right.
Got
Who hadn't
interviewed by
come out.
her. Not yet.
Yeah.
No, but it was close.
Yeah.
And Mary Carr, who
Yep.
wrote Lit, had like 20 years sobriety at that time, was also being interviewed. We were the two
Right.
celebrity-ish like
Right.
interviews. And I'm talking about being sober for 9 months. And I'm probably like that person going like, yeah, I'm totally into it. And Mary Carr was horrified by me. She was just like, how long have you been sober? I'm like, 9 months. She's like, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, you were just showing up where you were asked to show up.
Exactly. I didn't know better.
Yeah. I mean,
But
I will.
this is why I did not write a book about it until I was 14 years sober. So
Yeah. I mean, I know that about what was it, about 10, 15 years ago, all these people suddenly, with Instagram, I would say, like Instagram starts, which was right after our thing because I remember the fix was still in business and I was still there. Instagram starts and people who are 6 seconds sober start posting about like doing yoga to get sober and they become these huge like sober influencers and it really became a part of the conversation, which has been very interesting to watch. And so, and so I didn't ever feel shame about it, but I was surprised when people who didn't have a ton of experience with it were suddenly leading revolutions about how to get sober, you know? And I think that can be dangerous.
but you've always been very public too. So your first book
Yeah.
was a novel. It
Yeah.
wasn't like a memoir,
No.
but obviously you used your experience.
Yes.
But at what point did you throw yourself into like, I'm not going to be ashamed about this. I'm going to talk about it. When I met you, you were doing storytelling shows with people
Yes.
talking about sobriety.
That was so fun.
Yeah.
I never made a conscious decision. I didn't do it till I didn't write my book till I was 5 years sober. And I don't know if that was a conscious thing. I just, my thing about writing a book was And so and so I didn't ever feel shame about it, but I was surprised when people who didn't have a ton of experience with it were suddenly leading revolutions about how to get sober, you know? And I think that can be dangerous.
But you've always been very public too. So your first book
Yeah.
was a novel. It
Yeah.
wasn't like a memoir,
No.
but obviously you used your experience.
Yes.
But at what point did you throw yourself into like, I'm not going to be ashamed about this. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to, when I met you, you were doing storytelling shows with people
Yes.
talking about sobriety.
That was so fun.
Yeah.
I never made a conscious decision. I didn't do it till I didn't write my book till I was 5 years sober. And I don't know if that was a conscious thing. My thing about writing a book was I knew a girl who I'd worked at magazines. So a woman I'd worked with published a book and I saw it on someone's shelf and I said, if she can do this, I can, because I think I'm smarter than she is. And that was my motivation to write a book. And I had a friend who lived in England and she was like, I want to write a book. And so we made this deal that we would send each other 500 words every Sunday as sort of accountability partners. And she lived in England. I live in LA. Your word means nothing. So I thought that was that. I fly home and she sends me her 500 words. And I realized, oh my God, she was serious. I got to do this. And I wrote 500 words and sent it off to her. And that became Party Girl. And I thought about, at that point in my life, when I got sober, I was hired by Premiere Magazine, may it rest in peace, to be their Party Girl columnist. And I was hired to write a column that was me going out to all these parties and Oscars and events and interviewing celebrities. And so I thought it was really funny in real life that I had been hired to represent this party girl right when I got sober. And I thought that would be a really funny premise for a book, but especially if instead of it being a column about interviewing celebrities, it being a column about being a party girl and somebody having to pretend to be a drunk when they were sober. And so that was the premise for the book.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it was it's my favorite thing I've ever written. I'm working on the script now. It's been optioned over and over again. And the people who have the option now, they attached a producer who gave me notes. And I know you know this world. It's like, I'm always like, I'm happy to do notes if I think it will make it better and if I think it's fun. Otherwise, give me notes for notes' sakes and we're done. And her notes are really good. So I'm in the process of rewriting it now.
So, can you tell me, like, when you got sober, you do the outpatient.
Yeah.
Did you do it for 30 days? Longer?
Yeah, I did it for longer. They let kind of it was like I said, it was sort of like I made up their outpatient program. They kind of let me stick around and do whatever. And you just kind of go over for alumni meetings and stuff like that. So there was no hard stop actually.
Because I think one of the things that's the most difficult for people who are trying to get sober is this staying sober. That shame and that surrender only takes you so far. In my opinion, you have to kind of keep surrendering. What do you think is the thing that made it stick for you?
Well, I will say I remember sitting in that room and our counselor saying there, look to your right, look to your left. Only 1 in 30 stay sober. And I've always kind of had this, the rules don't apply to me. I was just like, cool, that's gonna be me. And whether that means anything or not, that I remember thinking that. My life had been so sad and so small that the difference between that and just being around people and having friends and being employable was so radical that I don't think it ever occurred to me that it might be better. I mean, it's different when it's like you had a whole life. I don't know why I'm frozen. But I had no ability to have a relationship or have children or do any of these things. And so for me, I was out of options. And pretty much without exception, I mean, yeah, it's never occurred to me to go back because my life was just so much better.
Did you continue using 12 step
Oh,
did you stick with that?
oh, very much. Very much. I yeah, I have a meeting at my house in this room that we're in. I was listening to a four step yesterday. Um, it is almost more important today than then. I mean, no, it's as important because I mean, a lot of it is just remembering, I am spiritual. I guess I can't describe God, but I know that I have experienced the craving disappearing and experienced multiple miracles. I mean, I had a baby at 53. Granted, it was through a surrogate, but I have experienced so many miracles. The family I come from, the fact that I survived, let alone get to thrive. I mean, that is, and so for me, most of my happiness or peace or serenity is based on remembering I'm not in charge, knowing that even when I don't get something, it's for my greater good, and just kind of trying to find the joy in all of it, which I need a spiritual connection for that.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I think, it's everybody comes upon it a different way, right? And I do think that a lot of people are scared to try that way, the 12-step way, because they're like, oh, it's just going to be a bunch of like Jesus freaks.
Yeah.
And there are times when I go to a meeting and I'm like, oh my God, like I don't want to hear, like it's all religious. One of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast was I was like, the thing I like the most about meetings is the truth and the real stories from
Yeah.
people and those moments where I can go, oh my God, I felt like that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I I don't know. I go to very specific meetings that actually at this point I only go to two meetings and they're both meetings I started. So
Uh-huh.
perhaps that it's a limited experience. I can get annoyed by things in meetings, but it's usually not the God talk. But yeah, what people should know is that every single one of us said, dear God, no, I don't want to be around those Jesus freaks who are creepy and hold hands and say prayers, and only did it because we had no other option. So it's a perfectly not just acceptable way to feel, but a normal way to feel. And just, it's nothing like what you think it is.
I'm trying to figure out how to help people try sobriety that aren't desperate. Because in
Mm.
my experience, we always say we wish you desperation because there's just no way I would have stayed sober if I hadn't felt so bad the day that I was like, I can never drink again. If I hadn't felt that low, I don't know that I would have just been like, for me, it was always like, I want to be sober a little bit more than I want to drink. And I still wanted to drink. It was not any kind of immediate, like, that it's completely lifted. I was like, it was a way to release the pressure for me. I mean, drinking, taking Xanax, zoning out on my phone, a thing I still do. Like I wanted to be checked out. And so, like, for people that are like, I really like checking out, but, I'd like to try sobriety, like, how do they do it?
Yeah, I've always been so grateful that my end was me with cocaine alone for days at a time, because there is no way I can say to myself, oh, it's just casual. Like, there was nothing casual about it. And I'm quite impressed with the people I know with high bottoms who stick with it, because I still cannot forget how bad it was for me. So I don't know. I don't know how you stop anything if you're not desperate, because what do they say? There's only one thing more painful. Ugh, I'm screwing it up. Change is one of the more painful things, and you'll only do it if not changing is more painful.
Yes,
So, so how do you do that? Willpower, I guess. I don't have any of that.
I
So,
don't either.
yeah.
None. I love a shortcut. I like immediate, I like to feel better right away.
Yeah, and the zoning out, and of course, zoning out on the phone. I have a timer on my Instagram I'm allowed on for 5 minutes at a time. Unfortunately, I just discovered Threads. I think you're big over there, right?
No, no, but I do like it.
Threads is interesting because in your brain, it's very hard to justify Instagram. It's just very hard to say this is good for me. Threads has all these like use ChatGPT to optimize your life. These are 100 prompts and they're really helping me. And so it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything wrong. And I may not be, TBD, but yeah, I mean, whatever, zoning out feels good. And in some ways there's nothing wrong with it. But this reminds me of something. See, what you don't know is how often I've thought of you in my child's first year, and I bet so many moms with this baby on board. I kept thinking that because I don't know how this connects to wanting to zone out, but I think it really does.
Oh, motherhood is the first year is impossible.
And people don't tell you. And I was like, no, Stefanie told us. She told us.
I tried to warn you.
That was super, super brave too. Because even however many years later, when I became a mom, it was not appropriate to say you were bored. It was just not. And when you are 53 and you have a child, you have 30 years of your judgments about other mothers that you then watch yourself do. I mean, it is crazy. And oh, I was so bored. And you don't know that it's going to change. So then you're depressed. I mean, he's in It's Terrible Twos, and it's a trillion times better because he's so entertaining. But I didn't want to say out loud how bored I was.
There's a lot of things you don't want to say out loud when you're a new mom
Yeah,
because just similar to struggling with
yeah,
addiction, it feels like nobody will understand. And it feels like if you said the dark thoughts that are in your head, people would just go, oh,
yeah.
back away slowly.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very similar. And honestly, I felt like I was back to being a newcomer when my son was born because I didn't understand that motherhood was nobody really talked about what the painful part is you're giving birth to a new you. Whether that means you're not like the sexy young thing anymore, whether that means you have to accept the fact that, how your mother treated you. Anyway, sorry, this is not for this podcast, but you can see I have a lot.
Yes, it is.
Yes and no.
It's all
But
relevant
but it brought me back to feeling like a newcomer again. And it was really painful.
because you have a lot of feelings and there's nowhere for them really to go.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm assuming that a lot of your friends were past the new baby stage.
This crazy thing is that I had a bunch of friends who older moms. Like a bunch meaning 3, which is crazy because it thank God for them. They really did get me through the first year.
Were you so grateful that you had been sober for a long time before having a kid?
Yeah, and I still am. I am. I mean, it's funny though because I would think of you and a couple other, and other people now who have talked about drinking in early, and I was like, when the early motherhood, and I'm like, whoa, I get it. I didn't want to drink, but I got it because it was so boring. But I mostly I come from such intergenerational trauma that was like inflicted on this and then the next generation and the next generation. And I don't think it could have ever stopped had I not, waited. I think every day of meditation over the past 25 years, mostly the trauma therapy, I did EMDR, those thousands of 12-step meetings, like that's what makes me able to not do to my kid what was done to me.
Do you think, did you start doing the EMDR at the beginning of sobriety or way
That
later?
was what I did in 2017. And so when I say like life got a lot easier then, everything changed radically after I did EMDR. Radically. Have you ever done it?
I did it like one session years ago and it didn't do that much for me, but I didn't stick with it.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. I've done it hundreds of times. Cause yeah, it's not like a one session situation. Um, but yeah, there was something about doing that. And it basically, I don't understand it in the same way I can't explain God. Somehow EMDR takes these like brain synapses, disconnects the way it was connected, plugs it in somewhere else, and suddenly you see yourself in a new way. That's how I experienced it. And the difference between how I saw myself before EMDR and after was just radical. And as a result of seeing myself differently, I made different choices. I surrounded myself with different people. I went from really being, I had a good life, but I was single, dating the wrong guys, broke. Um, my friends were all in the same situation too. I do EMDR for a couple of years and I start this really successful business. I buy a house, I meet a guy, we have a kid. Um, and I know it's because of that. It really had to do with taking what I had always been told I was and rewriting that and kind of, and I don't mean this in a self-aggrandizing way, like seeing myself as like the magnificent creature I am and making choices from that point of view rather than the point of view of who my parents had told me I was.
Um, can I ask you this? And
Yeah.
you can not talk about it if you don't
Yeah.
want, but did it change? Do you have a relationship with your parents?
Yeah, my mom just visited, which was fun. They mean well. They're both alive. They mean well. They are the product of their environments. And I do the best I can. And what I've learned, and especially after my mom's recent visit, um, I've just learned that if I just don't react, they're going to do what they do. And they don't have that power over me anymore. So I can just kind of look at them as just like troubled people, you know?
Are you a proponent of Mel Robbins' Let Them?
I guess I'm not a proponent of self-help, so I think she seems super cool, but
Well, the
it's
glasses alone, right?
oh yeah, the
Those
glasses are
black,
cool. Glasses are cool. She
she's
seems
making
like a
those
very
cool.
nice person. I know that people get very, all of those things. Look, I haven't read it, but I just feel like all of these things like are kind of obvious, but then somebody says it and they've got great marketing and good. Let's let people get this message. Um, but so yeah, just let them. Sure. Isn't that the same thing as just sort of surrendering?
Yeah. Working on your codependence.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Not trying to micromanage people. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. I mean, it sure seems good. I find in the same way that I don't think you can go to a retreat and do ayahuasca and come back with your trauma healed. I don't think it's like you just make a decision to let people do things. Everything for me, everything has required so much work, so many meetings, so much meditation, so many trauma therapists. Um, because if it was that easy, we would just all decide to be sober and we would all just decide to, that's not my experience. Nothing I've ever had came easily, and it requires day in, day out commitment to work.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself ever tempted to drink or do drugs, or do you ever have those moments?
I have. It's been a long time. The two times that I remember early on were when I was traveling and I was around people who were not alcoholics but heavy drinkers or users, and I was very bored. And once I was in New Zealand and once I was in Indonesia, and both times I felt very isolated and very bored. And I was like, wow, I want to drink. When I was in Indonesia, I had already become this person who talks publicly about sobriety. Oh, I think I was working at the Fix actually. And so I very consciously said, whoa, if you do this, you're going to lose your livelihood. So I think that's what stopped me. Um, since then, it's I guess 15 years. I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, like I said, when I was in early sobriety, I would think of you. I mean, when I was in early motherhood, I would think of you. And I didn't want to drink, but I understood why people did. A lot of the time, I don't even understand why people do it. It just doesn't look good, right?
It really doesn't.
Oh,
Early sobriety, though, I did feel like I was missing out a lot, and I had a lot of anger about why can't I drink like other people? It's at the beginning, it felt like, wow, everybody else can make this work, but something is defective in me that when I drink, I just don't have an off switch. And I was so mad about that. I was really mad. I was like, of all people, I really need to drink. Like, this is so unfair. They don't even seem to like it as much as I do. And I'm the one who can't seem to make it. Why? And I was like, I would get these little thoughts of like maybe like with a little more practice or what, but it's funny that you just brought up what you brought up because since I was public pretty much right away,
Yeah.
I was like somebody's gonna even if I don't get caught, I'll know and then I'll feel like a huge fraud. It gave me some accountability.
Yeah, and I remember obviously Intervention. When I was in early sobriety, that was my favorite show, and I remember them talking about how it people they'd walk through airports and somebody would be like, "Are you still sober?" So the show helped them have accountability. But yeah, I you know, I have not it's not been about wanting to drink, but I have had very challenging points. Like I said, my last one was when Benny was born. I'd never been so depressed. During the pandemic, early pandemic, I was really, really depressed. And 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 I had super dark times. Uh, I moved to New York in 2007 and was there, and I just was looking back. I have so much compassion for just this just wounded person who was just like kind of flinging herself around the world trying to find peace, you know?
Yeah. I mean, as corny as it sounds, we're kind of miracles, you know?
Totally.
A lot of people try this thing and it doesn't stick. And you know what? God bless them. But I will say that after all these years, when I see somebody like at the grocery store first thing in the morning buying a bottle of vodka, I just like my heart hurts for
Yeah.
them. And I just think there's so many people that are suffering with this and can't get it, you know? And then I just feel profoundly grateful that, which is the opposite of how I first felt,
Right.
which was like, why can't I? And now I'm so grateful that, like, oh, I don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it feels so far away for me now. It feels like I'm, talking about a different person. It's hard to believe that's the same person. But and of course, once it's part of your day-to-day life, you, it's easy to forget. If all your friends are sober and you're not hanging out with newcomers and it sort of is like it just it doesn't even feel like it was me, which is why it's important for me to keep working with sponsees and doing all of that.
Now, before we go, you are still in this space. Well, you didn't start it, but you just took over as
Yeah.
co-host for, it's called Sober Living.
Yes.
It used to be called Recovery Rocks, but you're rebranding.
Yep.
So that's on, right? Have you
That's
recorded some
Oh,
episodes?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So Lisa Smith is one of my favorite people on earth, and she and I had actually talked about we had actually recorded a podcast a few years ago. Oh my God, I just turned my shredder on. What the sorry.
We have a good directional mic because I can't hear it.
Oh my God, that was the loudest thing ever. So Lisa Smith and I had recorded a podcast a few years ago that we never released because we just couldn't figure out what it was. And so she just basically calls me out of the blue and says, "Hey, Tawny is leaving. I don't want to stop doing this podcast. Would you ever consider co-hosting? And feel free to say no." And I was so honored. Oh, here's the crazy part about it. So I had the podcast bug had been getting me back because I had retired my recovery podcast, retired my book publishing podcast. And I had a friend, a newly sober gay guy, and we decided let's do a podcast because he and I have really hilarious banter. And we went and recorded 15 episodes. And he was very like, didn't like the episodes, didn't like the art, didn't like the theme song. And it was very, push and pull. And I kept having to pay for the studios and all this stuff. And I finally had it. And I literally said to the universe, can't I just be like him, just be able to show up and do the podcast and not have to pay all the money and do all the arranging? And I am not kidding. Lisa called me the next day and said, "Do you want to do this?"
Manifest.
A
Let
manifest.
them. I don't know how I just threw that in there. So what else? You also have a very successful business where in case somebody has a book idea,
Yeah.
They have a business that they want to have help branding. I'm speaking for you. You can tell us
Yeah.
what it is and how people can find you.
Yes, it is strictly for entrepreneurs with big businesses who want to be the authority in their field. It is not, we don't acquire books. It is not for novelists. It is not for someone with just a great idea. If you don't have a business that a book will 10 to 100 times, 10x your business, don't go with us because it's very expensive. And I don't like to take people that I don't think really, by becoming the expert and getting the speaking gigs and getting the big clients, like I want this book to transform them. So it is more commerce than art. And it's called Legacy Launchpad Publishing. That being said, we've probably done 10 recovery memoirs. We did,
Wow.
yeah, because when we started, we only started because Darren Prince, I don't know if you know him, but he's amazing. He wanted to do a recovery memoir. He came to me to write it. I said, I won't write anyone's book. And then he stayed on me so much that I said, I'll hire a friend to write it and I can edit it. And that became my first client. But we did Emily Lynn Paulson's book. We did a woman, I'm looking up at our books, Amy.
I love Emily Lynn Paulson. She did this podcast.
Yes, we did Highlight Reel. We did Courtney Friel's book. We did Alexis Haynes' book. Yeah, we've done a bunch of we have a couple recovery books coming out right now. However, they are either people whose that recovery book will really help their business or they knew it wouldn't. Darren's told me he's made several $1 million as a result of this book. Yeah. In
Wow.
terms of spokesperson deals, speaking arrangements. And what he said is it really blew up. He's a sports manager. He's a manager of athletes. And he said it really blew up his business because people knew his personal story and they wanted to work with him. And he signed David Goggins as a client and blah, blah, blah. So,
Well, that is fantastic. Tell us where to find you. Go ahead and promote yourself. So, Sober Living is the podcast,
and then
Legacy Launchpad is the company.
exactly. My other podcast is called Behind the Book Cover, and that's where I interview authors about the past, present, and future of publishing. I also have a Substack, also called Behind the Book Cover. And on all the socials, I'm at Anna B. David.
Okay, perfect. I just want to thank you so much for coming on here, giving me your time.
So
Happy to come on your podcast, all the good stuff. It's so good seeing you again.
I'm so happy to be here. Again, you have no idea how many moments I've thought of you over the years.
Aw, thank you. And thanks
Down to earth.
everybody for listening, and I'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Stephanie.
Life is good, life is good, yeah. Life is good.